Hola clase. So here we are in another action-packed screencast to explain a grammar point. I'm sure my YouTube views are just off the charts at this point. In this chapter we're going to talk about three verbs. Ir, dar, y estar. Ir is to go, dar is to give, and estar is to be. And the reason we're studying these three verbs in particular is because they are called irregular verbs. Irregular verbs means that for some reason they don't follow the rules that they should. Like last chapter we studied regular AR verbs. That means if you see an AR verb, you know what to do with it. You know which endings to put on, and you know what the forms are going to be you don't even need to know what the verbs mean. In this case, it's not going to be completely like that. Some of these are more difficult than others. Just a quick note about verbos irregulares. There's no way to tell, other than with practice, which verbs are irregular and which aren't. I'm telling you that in this chapter, these three verbs are irregular. They do not follow the pattern. They have their own thing going on. But as we get more into the language, it just comes with practice. Which ones are irregular and which ones are not, you don't know until you practice them, until you just learn them. Okay? So let's scroll on over here to our wonderful book. Look at that. So you can see, if you need to get to the actual chapter by logging into the book, it's over here, capítulo 3, gramática, and then the second link, los verbos ir, dar, y estar. The chart that they give you here, they're just putting all three verbs next to each other, and they're listing them down, all six forms. Okay, you know usually the way we set it up is 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6, but that's, you can see this is obviously different. But you can pause, or you can fast forward back to this part to fill in your notes, which is your first assignment this week. You want to submit those notes, put the correct forms down. Okay, but there are all the forms. You see that the yo form, and all three of these verbs, excuse me, has a y, and that's what makes them irregular. Now there are other reasons that they are irregular as well, but the yo form it really doesn't follow the rules, okay, on either of these. So that's what we're going to talk about, okay? That's the page in the book. And let's move on to the first verb that I would like to talk about, which is ir, to go. Okay? First thing we want to note about ir is it's an IR verb. There are only two letters. It's only IR. But yet it uses AR endings. This is one reason that it's irregular. Who knows over time why this happened? Why it became vas for you go and va for he goes, vamos. Why is it using AR endings? That's why it's irregular. That's one reason. And the second one obviously is the V. There's a V as the first letter in every form in present tense of the verb ir. Why? Well, that's why it's an irregular verb. That's why we're studying it separately. The other thing we want to really get the hang of with ir is this word a, and it's only one letter, and it means to. Most of the time, it's hard for me to even think of a situation off the top of my head where you're not going to use the verb ir, to go, with a. You're going to have it in there somewhere. You're always going to someplace, right? For example, voy a la clase de español. I'm going to Spanish class. Or I go. As you know, present tense could be I go or I am going. You have to use a. If you just say voy la clase de español, that means I go Spanish class. That doesn't sound right in English, and it doesn't sound right in Spanish either. So just get used to using ir with a. And it's even further emphasized in this question that we learned last time. ¿A dónde? So we know donde means where, but now here's a modification. ¿A dónde? It becomes a new word. It means to where. This is a very common question. ¿A dónde vas? Where are you going? To where are you going? So it's built in. You have ir and a. Ir, a. It's just part of it. Just get used to using a, which means to. You're going to tell where someone's going with ir. Let's go down to dar. And this one is usually a dead giveaway, just based on the structure of how you're going to use it. Because how do you use the verb to give? You're always giving something to someone, right? That's the general structure. Think about how you use it in English. I give the money, there's your something or your direct object. Talk about those later. To, there's that very important one letter, a, la empleada, to the employee. I give something to someone. So if there's a blank here, you know it's not going to be voy. It's not going to be I go the money to someone. The sentence structure is going to give this away. Something to someone. It's really hard to make a sentence with the verb to give without having that type of structure. There's one little confusing note, and don't even worry about it. I want to explain it to you so those of you who can get it can use it right, but it basically comes with practice. When you use a, when you give something to someone, if somebody's giving it to me, it becomes a me. And to you becomes a ti, but all the rest of them are the same. If you want to give it to him, it's just a él. If you want to give it to somebody's giving something to us, it just becomes a nosotros, and we use the regular subject pronouns. For some reason, over time, these two changed, and it actually makes it easier as an English speaker. Instead of saying yo and tu, a mí and a ti with accents. Okay, and here's an example of that. Das, you give el DVD a mí. You give the DVD to me. Don't worry about the structure. You give me the DVD. It can be translated that way. But for right now, I want you to write it out. Okay? A mí. Das el DVD a mí. So there's no such thing as a yo. Okay? All the rest of them, you just use the regular subject pronouns like we know. But for whatever reason, when we use a, those two have changed. Now let's move on to the last irregular verb for this chapter, which is estar. The first thing you have to recognize about estar is it does mean to be, and so does ser. But estar and ser are not the same thing. You cannot use them equally. Estoy bien means I'm well, I'm doing well. Soy bien means absolutely nothing. In the same way that soy inteligente means I am smart, estoy inteligente means absolutely nothing. I know that's weird as English speakers that they have two different verbs that mean to be, but they're used very differently. And I don't want you to get confused because in this chapter right now, we're studying estar. So just work on using estar for this chapter. I'm not going to be quizzing you on when to use which one. That's very difficult, and it's actually something that's going to take you years of speaking Spanish on your own once you know it to really get the hang of that. It's tough for English speakers. So the main thing, two main things that you can split into. There's obviously a lot more, but we have temporary, moods, emotions, and feelings. Things that are temporary. Being tall, that's why we say es alto. We use ser for that because that's a characteristic. That's not a mood. But when you ask somebody, ¿Cómo estás? How are you doing? Meaning, how's your mood? How are your emotions? How are you feeling? Estoy bien. I'm doing okay. That's how I'm feeling. The more words you know, the more ways you can answer this question. Sick would be a feeling. I'm feeling sick. Estoy enfermo is the word. Nervioso, nervous is another one. ¿Cómo estás? There's unlimited ways to answer ¿Cómo estás? Just increase your vocabulary and you'll know. Moods, emotions, feelings. Okay? And the other one that we're really going to study in this chapter is location. When you want to say where something or someone is, you use estar. Mi hermano está en su cuarto. My brother is located in his room. You would never say mi hermano es en su cuarto. There's no such thing. It doesn't exist. I know that's a little strange, but for this chapter, just practice using estar. Okay, that's it for now. Make sure to fill in your notes with the correct forms and submit those, and ask any questions you may have. Buena suerte!